Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good time today. It's a super special day, and I'm happy that I'm able to drop in and say hello and share some thoughts with everybody about my good buddy and certainly a best friend, Al Sultanrich. Before I do that, let me just make sure everybody knows who I am. I'm pretty certain there's a couple of folks who know who I am, Eric Wagner. There are some people who may have heard of me, and other people have no idea who I am. Okay, so let me just step back and hopefully I can explain to the audience the special relationship I have with Al, and bring some context to our friendship, so you can enjoy hearing some funny stuff. He and I met back in 1970, I think, with the exception of Eddie. I'm probably the one person now that's probably known Al for over 52 years. And Eddie, I think you got me by a few years. But our relationship goes all the way back to 1970. We met in the 5th grade for the first time in East Murches Elementary School. And the 5th grade was a big deal in East Murches Elementary School, because when you went to the 5th grade, you had a homeroom and you were going to different classrooms for different subjects, and that was a big deal, a big transition. So we started off together in the 5th grade, and we had Mrs. Merwitz as our homeroom teacher. She was an English teacher, and she was a real tough one, an excellent English teacher, but very, very firm, strict. And you had to really be on your toes in her classroom. And he and I found ourselves in that classroom, and we had some real funny experiences with her. I can tell you that my relationship with Al, and we got to be good friends because we found out very quickly at age 10 that the ability to laugh, and laugh hard, to the point where your stomach hurts and your jaw hurts because it's just so funny, whatever it is you're laughing about. That was very important to both of us. And the other thing we like to try and do is challenge authority as little kids. We didn't get in a lot of trouble, but we always we pushed that line. So all the stories that I can think of with Allie and I, going back over the years, Claudia said, "Al always loves your stories." Well, because the last few years we've spent a lot of time on the phone and helping Al out with his memory. I would talk about a lot of these little tight spots we would get into as little kids, and right through elementary school, and perhaps even a little bit later on too. But anyway, the experience in East Murches Elementary School and in Mrs. Merwitz's class for English was a gem. That was a gem of a story, and it was what Allie loved. It's the oldest one that I can think of that I would tell him on the phone when we would talk. And the one big story was the English test that we were both taking in her class after a few weeks. And in a class back then, there was 35 students spread out in these big desks. We sat all the way across from each other diagonally. We could barely see one another from the other side of the room. But this English test started to take place, and Allie was a smart kid. I mean, he was smart in grade school, high school, college. I mean, one of the smartest kids in the class, and he had no problem getting A's. So during this one particular test, he had finished early, like he finished most of his tests, and a little pencil goes up in the cradle of his desk, and that freckly-faced, red-headed kid would just sit there with a big grin on his face about how well he thought he did, and he was going to be up on the chalkboard, his name, number 1, Allie Sultanrich, A+, Eric Wagner, C+, I was a C+ kid, So we're in the middle of this exam, and you had to be pin drop quiet in her classrooms, otherwise she would have a real fit. And he had finished his exam early, like he did with most of his tests. And I was across the room just struggling, just grinding through this exam. Oh, here we go, I'm thinking to myself, another whatever it was, and Mrs. Merwitz is going to be all over me, and so on and so forth. And I'm grinding through, and everyone else was still working on the exam, with the exception of Allie, So I would have the ability to pick up and catch his attention, and I got him laughing so hard very, very quickly, and we both got, or he got in a lot of trouble for that. But that laughter was caused by me mimicking an old song that I had heard on the radio as a little kid when I was 10. In the kitchen, I was having breakfast, getting ready to go to school, and I had the radio on, this big old German Grundig radio, and there's this song that comes on, Alley Oop. You know, and it went something like this. This cat's name is Alley Oop, Alley Oop, Boop. He's the king of the jungle jive, Alley Oop. Wears a bear cat suit and eats bear meat stew. You know, the song was about a comic strip of the 40s about a little caveman named Alley Oop with a bearskin suit and a club. And I would sing that song around Allie, and he would just start to laugh uncontrollably. Well, I caught his attention during that exam, and I looked up and I mouthed the words without saying anything. This cat's name is... And he saw me. And at that point, he just lost it. He couldn't contain himself. He laughed so hard. Mrs. Merwitz didn't understand what was going on, and ordered him outside into the hallway, and then she followed him and she let him have it, for disrupting the class. But I could do that with him with certain things, with comical stuff, get him to laugh like that. A few weeks later, of course, it backfired on me because we had a test and she was standing right behind me, and she caught me red-handed trying to do the same thing, to him all over again. So I would tell that story to him, and I get him to laugh. And one of the things Claudia always said was, Allie's long-term memory, he could remember stuff. He could go quite a bit of distance back. It was the short-term things that he had difficulty with. So when we would talk about these stories, he would really get happy because the ability to remember was very important to him, and his self-esteem. So what I have planned, I wanted to just let everybody know about that special relationship he and I had in elementary school, and how that was really kind of the brick and mortar behind how we have stuck together for so many decades as being buddies, because the stuff we would talk about on the phone and whenever we would get together would always be comical and have this little bit of a dimension in terms of challenging authority in some way, shape, or form, as little kids. Later on, outside high school, when I just transition out of the elementary school time period, Al went to Mercy, I went to Eastport. We hung back and forth, we saw each other, but Allie really branched off, and that's when he forged great relationships with his buddies over in Mercy High School. Bobby Turner, Bobby Lombardi, Charlie Crofts were just, three of his really close buddies from that, part of his life. And then we kind of we segued off, and we had gone to college, Al to West Point, then to Germany. We did hook up some years later in the early to mid 80s when he came back from Germany. And one of the funny stories that we would talk about was when he came back from Germany, he was living at home. I was living at home. I had a sales job. I had finished school. I was down on the island in a sales job, living in the basement bedroom of my folks' house. And Mrs. Sultanrich came up with the idea that, you know what, Allie and Eric are living at home, and that's no good, and I'm going to put an end to it. She found an apartment without even telling us she was going to do this. It's Mrs. Sultanrich. She found this apartment and set an appointment up for the two of us to go see it. Told us when it was going to be, and so on and so forth. Eric, you need to get out of your house, and Allie, you're getting out of this house. You need to have your own place. And so that's how we wound up in an apartment together. And as funny as it sounds, and we had great times in that apartment. We also worked for a spell for Lombardi Sanitation in Riverhead. Bobby Lombardi's dad, family business. He ran a couple of garbage trucks, and when I was unemployed and Al was unemployed, we were looking to make some bucks. We'd ride on the back of this garbage truck. Well, here you go again, one of these crazy stories with Al. He and I were on the back of this truck, and Mr. Lombardi would pull into Tepper's drugstore on the tracks in Riverhead Town there, and that was kind of like a stationery store, ice cream shop, deli thing going on. Al and I would be in the back doing the dumpster, and Mr. Lombardi would be heading in, getting us some egg sandwiches, and we'd be emptying that dumpster. And there was an occasion where we emptied it, and there were a lot of adult magazines in the dumpster. And lo and behold, look at these magazines, you know, and here we are 24, 25, and so, oh, this is great, you know. Well, we took one of the magazines and a centerfold in it and slapped it on the back of the top of the garbage truck on the back side, you know. Now, one of the things Mr. Lombardi used to do when he drove that truck, he'd beep and wave to everybody that came in the opposite direction, because he was a politician. He was also a town councilman, and he would look to, you know, work his constituency that way anytime he was behind the wheel. Well, the cars coming forward got a big beep and a wave, and the cars behind were looking at this centerfold pasted on the back of the garbage truck, and Allie and I would just laugh hysterically working on the back of that truck. I think it was like $35 a shift. But we had more fun, you know, here we were, two college graduates, just like, you know, working on the back of this garbage truck. So we did live together in that apartment, had some great times. What I'd like to do is finish up and kind of pause this video. What I have planned is to do an on-site video at a very important address in Newport Beach, which speaks volumes about how Allie and Eddie grew up, and with Mr. and Mrs. Sultanrich, and even go by that apartment and kind of give everybody a little snapshot of that, because those were very, very important building blocks of Al's life, and the memories that I have with him, and Bobby Turner too. Unfortunately, Bobby Lombardi's passed away. Rest in peace, Bobby. And Charlie's busy with family, I think Minnesota. But you know, I'd be with you today, or I should say on the 16th. But my dad's in the hospital with a colon cancer situation, and we're trying to get through that with Sloan and Stony Brook and so on and so forth. But again, thank you very much for sharing your time with me today. And again, I want to let you know I'm going to be sending 2 additional quick video snippets your way. Hopefully you can watch them. It's going to be specifically 63 Pine Edge. I've talked to the owners that live in that house now and told them who I am, and I'm going to be going there to do a little video of that backyard and how crazy fantastic it was, and that's where we spent a great deal of our time. Also over to the apartment that we shared, so I think you get a kick out of that too. And there's one more story I got to share with you, and I'll do that with the video during the backyard at 63 Pine Edge Drive, Newport Beach, because that was a gem of a story with a scuba diving expedition we went on. So have a great time. Al, I think of you all the time. I know you want us to be happy and celebrate your life and laugh, because that's what you love to do yourself. So thank you very much, and I'll be back in touch with you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.